Aside from making a murderer, Abducted in Plain Sight is arguably Netflix's most talked about documentary of all time. The one-off special follows the lives of Idaho family the Brobergs, with middle child Jan being the central focus. Jan, now 56, was kidnapped twice by Robert B. Berchtold, a man who the family classed as a close friend. Both Jan's family and the FBI agent who investigated in the case, felt Broberg, who is now deceased, was able to get to Jan by tearing her family apart. Jan says not only was she groomed and manipulated by the man she calls a monster, so were her parents. Berchtold had an 8-month affair with her mum, as well as being masturbated by her dad on one occasion, after revealing he wasn't having with his wife, Bob Broberg, who died of bone cancer in November 2018, and Mary Ann Broberg faced a heap of criticism from viewers following the release of the documentary. This not only came from the spouse's affairs with Berchtold, who they seemingly didn't realize was evil, but also their naivety in allowing Jan to stay with Berchtold after he had kidnapped her the first time. Speaking about the flack her parents have received, Jan explained, "It's funny because everyone was kind of ready for criticism, but they didn't know it was going to be this much." Jan continued, "But the people who like the documentary or who really got something from it are 10 times the numbers of the hateful ones. Most people are really positive, but yes, it's a little upsetting." Referring to her father's death, she continued, "My dad passed away in November from bone cancer, and there have been a few people who've just said, 'Oh, I hope your dad is burning in hell.' That kind of makes you feel a little bit bad, as he was such a wonderful father and such a marvelous man. My mother too. My mother, who is just doing great and still to this day takes ownership of the part she played and thinks, why didn't I see it? And why did I make the mistake in the first place? Because it's totally against everything I believe." Jan reasoned, "But then also you have to remember you have a master puppeteer who is seducing you and enticing you. They have a whole different level of power and control." Jan explained, following the horror of her teen years, her parents have given their lives to giving back to others. She said, "Obviously we all ultimately make our choices, and that's why my parents felt so guilty and ashamed of a couple of bad choices they made, but overall they really had given their lives to giving back to others." Speaking about her mum specifically, Jan explained, "My mum went back to school and she became a social worker and a counselor, and she placed hundreds of kids in good foster homes and adoptions. She lobbied to get the Center for Missing and Exploited Children into Idaho and Utah, and she told our story." Mary Ann released book Stolen Innocence, the Jan Broberg story, back in 1995. Jan continued, "So I think most people in the world have done something they'd rather keep private and hope to not have in the news, and I mean, we've all made mistakes, nobody is perfect for sure, and so yes, it's a little hard." Another shocking twist to the harrowing tale was Berchtold also convinced Jan, who was 9.5 when they first met, that Bob Broberg wasn't her real dad, as her real father was actually an alien. Through a series of tapes, supposedly sent from the aliens, Berchtold made Jan believe she had a mission to birth a child with him ahead of her 16th birthday. Jan felt she was more susceptible to believing this quest was real, as not only was she a child, but her childhood was an era when sci-fi was a huge part of popular culture, making it all the more easy to believe. She recalled, "Berchtold would take us all, Jan and her 2 sisters and his children, to the movies, and the sci-fi films were really popular in the early 70s. He'd take all the kids and we're going out there to see E.T. or whatever, and he'd talk about sci-fi stuff all the time. Berchtold would say, there's got to be people that live on other planets. We can't just reach them yet." Jan explained how UFO sightings were widespread back then, and Berchtold would talk about these extraterrestrial reports with her parents in earshot of herself. After the extraterrestrial quest was revealed, Berchtold made Jan not talk to her dad under the pretense it would interfere with the alien mission. He seemed to take a particular dislike to Bob Broberg, later paying two men to burn down Jan's dad's business in Pocatello after he ordered Berchtold to leave Jan alone, giving her take on the dad's relationship with the man she once regarded her second dad. Jan said, "I think pedophilia is so narcissistic that all of the attention has to go to that person, the pedophile. At least in my case, looking back, that's how it was. I don't know if Berchtold ever wanted to be my father, but he didn't want me to love or ever have a relationship with my father. He definitely wanted me all for himself, and that's how he knew to tell a different story to each person. So he'd tell a whole other story to mum and to dad to get their sympathy and empathy, and you know he's a master at that. And that's why I think people find it hard to see what's going on, because the abuser knows what to say and how to act to gain the trust of every person around the target." Part 2 of Daily Star Online's exclusive interview sees Jan Broberg talk Berchtold's family.